Hello, everyone. We welcome you from near and far, near and far. And you may think of us as very far away, but aren't we oh so near? Mhm, mhm, mhm. You likely know who we are if you're here this evening. You have made our acquaintance to some degree. But as relationships go, there is an initial introduction, perhaps a handshake and an exchange of names and what do you do and where are you from and so on. But then the relationship progresses if you have interest or the other has interest. If there is a mutual interest, we would say. So if you are here, we would say it's likely that you have some mutual interest in getting to know Judah. And perhaps this vessel and her husband and others of like mind. And so there is an unfolding. Sometimes you meet a person and you think, wow, I really like this person's energy. I'm willing to invest some time with them to get to know them. True? Other times you may exchange a greeting and there's no real kinetic charge there, and so no offense, and none is taken, and you both move on to other things. Relationships require time, an investment of time, an investment of risk, wouldn't you say? That there is some risk in most relationships, particularly as you begin to become vulnerable. So we're here to, when we come open-hearted, open hearts, open hands. We come willing to serve fully, completely. We don't have disclaimers. We don't need a marriage contract, neither a separation or divorce papers. We are in it for eternity, you see. We are here to serve anyone who comes to us to the nth degree. We are available. Now, many, many times this vessel hears, and even from her own lips she may say, she hears from many of you, where is Judah? Where are my angels? Where are my guides? I have asked for help. I don't see any difference. I don't sense any help coming to me. I'm stuck in the same mess that I've been in all along, even though I've asked for help. And there are times this vessel also experiences difficulties wading through dark energies as she assists others who are in discomfort, in trouble, and as she deals with her own discomforts and troubles and those of her family and so on. But yet we assure you, and we assure her, whether you sense or feel our presence, we are here nonetheless. Always present, always present. It is simply that sometimes, because of the experience of your life and what you are going through, the vibrations through which you are wading are very dark and dense and murky, like, let's say, being in the bottom of a lake. Have you ever swum in a lake and it was very dark and murky around the bottom? And it would not matter if you opened your eyes, you simply could not see anything around you. And so we are present. However, there are times when life experiences keep you from experiencing our presence because it is murky for you. But we assure you that as you break through whatever dense or difficult energies or experiences you are encountering, you will find we have been there all along and we are there. And you will become more of a vibrational match to who and what we are. And you might say, well, who are you? And what does this all mean? And who is this Judah? And so on. Well, we have introduced ourselves to this vessel over time as the angelic group, which we are. We use the word angelic because it's the easiest word for you to understand. You see, but we are souls like you are souls. You are souls in a body. We are souls in angelic light bodies. We don't have physical bodies. And so we explain ourselves as angelic because that is the closest cultural reference you have for understanding who and what we are. We are a focus of source, of God, of the creator, of the Logos. The Logos has focused her attention. We are speaking of the one true creator. God has focused his or her attention our way, and in so doing has created our group, our angelic group. We are one of myriads of angelic groups. Every week when this vessel works with various persons, she meets new angels. She meets the angels assigned to the one she is working with. And this is great fun for us, you see. Just as you enjoy perhaps meeting new people and making new friends, so do we. So you may or may not understand us, and we are still a mystery to a large degree, even to this vessel who has invested her life, her reputation, everything about who she is. She is invested, risked, we would say, to develop this relationship and to express our messages. And still, even to her, we are very much a mystery in some ways. But stick around and you will know the reality of our presence and the miracles that we can bring, because in truth, angels are children of God, the offspring of God. Just as this beautiful young one here looks so very much like her mother, the same smile, the same eyes, the same beauty, perhaps even the same manner, or some of the same personality traits. It is the same with us. When you speak with us, you are speaking with the express image and representation of God. It's not very complicated, you see. And we see you the same way. You are also the offspring of God. You are evolving into your angelic state. One day, each of you will evolve into a state very similar to ours. You will be very much full of glory and light and wisdom and understanding, and you will live in glorified bodies. Now, that may sound new or unique or maybe even crazy to you, but the Christ said it many years ago. He said, you are children of God and you are like the angels. And so he even was one of the first to say to you, it is you are a child of God, not just I, the Christ. You are a child of God and you are evolving into your angelic state. And the Buddha, when the Buddha experienced his awakening, his enlightenment, he saw many, many, many myriads of golden Buddhas. You see, it's not all about him. It's about the creation of more Buddhas, the creation of more Christs. And likely that is why you are here. Because you may not even know exactly why you're here, but you feel some sense of attraction to the energy that we bring. This is you following, following the essence of your soul has a desire to re-enter your divine state, to know yourself as divinity, as a child of God. This vessel was thinking today about many years ago. She was going through a very difficult time. At that time, she was fully immersed in Christian faith. Going through a difficult time, sifting and sorting out what kind of person she was and wanted to be. She had been following her passion to sing, which had led her into a whole world encrusted with ego and glamour and fame and pride and so on in Nashville. And there were people offering her this and that, and she felt conflicted inside. Well, of course she did, because all of those things might flatter her ego, but they were not why she was sent to be here. And so she called her pastor friend, and he said to her, well, I'll tell you what you are. You're a woman of God. You see, and that helped her to get some clarity about the choices she needed to make. Yes, that is what I am. At the end of the day, I am a woman of God. Well, she remembered this story today, and we said to her, well, we'd like to adjust that a little bit. Was that a word that was helpful for her at that juncture? Absolutely. Is she a woman of God? Well, you might say that. If you saw her dressed in black with black nail polish on her fingertips and lots of heavy makeup tonight, you might think she was a witch. If you saw her dressed in white this evening and speaking about Christ, you might think that she's a saint or an enlightened being. Well, we don't really care what you think, but we will tell you what she is and what you are for that matter. She is more than just a woman of God. She is a God woman. She is God in a woman. You understand? God in a woman. And that is what you are. You are God in a woman, God in a man, God in a child. Inside of you, in the center of your being, is something divine that can never be extinguished. It is a flame that can never be put out. No one can put out the flame of your soul. It is eternal. It emanated from God and will return unto God. And no one has authority over that but you. Now, we've been quite on a little introduction here. And we're very glad you're here. And this has nothing to do with the topic, which is quite all right. I'm sure you would agree. And we do also, however, want to allow this vessel to share her teaching, for we honor and respect her human journey, which is expressed through her teaching and a teaching gift. And understand that what she teaches is what she most needs to learn. And what she most needs to learn is likely exactly what you might need to learn as well. And we have a great respect for the human experience and journey. And so we are very happy to yield the mic to her, and we will also assist as the evening progresses. Good. What do you think of that, kiddo? It's kind of weird. It's different, isn't it? It's really unique. It's my angel friends, and I just lend them my voice. And it feels really good. It feels very comfortable and safe. They take very good care of me. All right, anything so far? You guys doing okay? All right. So tonight we're talking about taking the easy way out, doing things the easy way. And so, as fate has it, every single week, as I pick a topic, I get to hash through and struggle with all the issues in me around the topic. So, there is an easy way to do life, but the ego is always going to make it hard, complicated, dramatic, painful. That's what the ego does. And so, for me, the sure sign that I'm acting out of the ego is when it's just tough and when there's not that flow or that ease. So I'm going to jump in here. So there is an easy way. I brought this is my little elementary school teacher coming out. Is that okay? I used to teach school and I loved it. What grade are you in? Sixth. You're almost grown now. Are you in middle school? Well, I taught middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but I also, 1st and 2nd grade were my favorites. Okay, so I brought my little jar here. If you can see what it says. It says it's my no jar, J-A-R, just to help you remember. Put my feathers in it to represent taking the easy way. Easy. Ha. So this stands for no judgment, no attachment, no resistance. No judgment, no attachment, no resistance. So I don't know if we'll get through all three of these tonight, judgment, attachment, and resistance, but we're going to dive in for sure. And hopefully you can remember those three. Judgment, no attachment, no resistance. That's the easy way. Judgments. Ugh. Judgments come disguised as the shoulds and the should nots. They also can come cleverly disguised as strong morality, right? You should not ever tell a lie, right? Strong moral judgments. They can come disguised as religious beliefs, dogmas, doctrines, and so on. Or even just the culture of a certain religious tradition. Judgments come disguised as opinions. And you know what they say about opinions? Judging is the primary function of the ego. So if you haven't heard any of the teachings that we've done on the ego, you can find those on the YouTube channel and dig in. So when we talk about ego here, we're not just talking about pride in the kind of cultural sense of ego. We're talking about our mind, which operates from the amygdala in the back of our brain. And our amygdala is the part of our brain that's meant to keep us safe. It's the part of our brain that if we step up to a busy street and there's a lot of traffic going by, causes us to step back, right? So that we don't get hurt. So our amygdala functions to keep us safe in life. But in our culture and with our upbringing and conditioning, it's way overactive, right? And so this part of our brain wants to code everything. That's the function of it. This is going to cause me pain. This is going to cause me pleasure. This is going to be good for me. This is going to be bad for me. So the easier way, non-judgment. So we've got to figure out how we're going to get free of this ego part operation in our mind. How we're going to silence it. How we're going to get to relax so that we can let go of judgments in order to get free. So having no judgments about anything is the primary trait of an enlightened person, of a self-actualized enlightened being. So when I talk about being a fifth dimensional being like Judah, non-judgment is the deal. Lao Tzu said, if you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. And if you keep your mind from judging and you aren't led by the senses, your heart will find peace. So judging leads us to feeling uncomfortable, troubled, upset, disturbed, anxious, afraid, hurt, in pain. That's where judgment leads us. We can't separate all those feelings from judging. Judging ourselves, judging others, judging the society, judging the political system. You know, I mean, every time we turn on the TV, flash, 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 judgment after one, after another, after another, after another. There's just constant prompts to judge, right? This is one of the big reasons why I don't watch the news. Maybe you guys can watch it and come out clean on the other side, but I cannot. If I watch it for a few minutes, I find myself getting hot, I find myself getting mad, I find myself getting sad or disappointed or afraid. It doesn't work for me. I'm not able to watch it without judging at this point. So judgment equals a troubled heart, feeling disturbed, feeling upset. This is the primary way that we know we're stuck with it, we're wrangling with the ego, or the ego is, arising, is when we feel disturbed in some way. And the disturbance can take any sort of face. It can look like sadness, it can look like fear, it can look like anger or frustration or irritation. It can look many different ways, but it's still basically the same thing. It's a disturbance, and it's caused by the ego. So to not judge is where we find peace, right? Is where we find peace. I don't know if you were listening last week. I mentioned a story about a famous enlightened guru in India, and he had a terminal diagnosis of cancer, and all of his friends and followers were so upset, so distraught, so sad. And he was like, no biggie, no big deal. You got to go some way, right? It wasn't a big deal for him. He was totally okay with it. There was no resistance there. He wasn't judging it as good or bad. He had no judgment about how he should exit life. And I just mentioned, because I get emails, I don't know what you guys' background is or was. Mine, I was raised as a fundamentalist Christian, was deeply involved in churches here in Charlotte, some healthy, some extremely unhealthy, some very loving, some very abusive. So I have a kind of a mixed bag of experiences, no judgment there. All of that's what brought me to this point, so I'm really thankful. But sometimes I like to mention some of the things that I'm processing in case it helps somebody who's getting out of religion or trying to heal from bad religious experiences. So there is a fundamental judgment that I have found that underpins the belief system of modern Christianity, and it's this. The judgment is this. It underpins all of it. If you're not one of us, if you're not a Christian, you're not okay. You're lost. You don't know the truth. You're in darkness, and you're going to hell. And so I loved hearing when my daughter was a young mother. I was still in Christianity at that time, and we were talking about the little town that she lived in. She couldn't find any friends, and the only friends that she met that seemed, reasonably healthy, that were raising kids like her, were Christian moms. But she always felt this icky motivation. They're having her over for play dates or for coffee because they wanted to proselytize her. They wanted to win her. And I'm sure, on whatever degree, based on their belief system, they felt a love and compassion for her and felt like she needed to be fixed and be okay. And she just always felt that. It felt gross. It was never that they just wanted to be a friend to her and love her. So if you have this judgment that if you're not one of us, not a Christian, you're going to hell, you're lost, this judgment causes a deeply subconscious coding of everybody you meet. They're either lost or found, doomed or rescued, bad or good, righteous or evil. And so this is a us and them story. So this is another way that you can identify the ego. It's an us and them story. Republican, Democrat. It's a big one, you guys. We are literally going to have to stay conscious every moment for the next 12 to 18 months, right? It's not us and them. It's not you're bad and you're good. It's that we're all in this together. And I'm not saying don't vote. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the judgments are thick and they're gross and they're really defiling. So us and them, that's the story of the ego. So these judgments, speaking still of the Christian issue, they defile any real love that a Christian, true love from God, from Jesus, from Yeshua ben Joseph, from the Holy Spirit, that someone would want to give to another, but the judgment defiles it, you see. And so the idea there is you're lost, therefore, because I am in the know, because I am saved, and because I'm a good and loving person, I need to rescue you. Chuck and I were talking about some of the struggles that I still have personally are around areas where I need to get healed, where I need to express some anger. One time when my kids were young, about the age of this sweetie, my daughter went on a trip with a church to the beach, and they prepped the kids about how to share love, the love of Jesus, with people there on the beach by praying for them. and they put that, they went to a fishing dock, a pier, and said, now you can't come off the pier until you've witnessed to at least one person. So that's something that I need to get mad about. I mean, I remember being mad about it at the moment, but I need to really feel my anger about that, because that's abuse, right? To force a child to proselytize somebody else. Do you have anything on that? Go ahead, sweetheart.
Talking about Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is the powers that be, the ones in the government and the ones not in the government, the ones with money, know that you divide and conquer. You divide and conquer. So what they've done is they bought up news channels and they've told lies in order to divide us. So we're so busy fighting against one another that we're not paying any attention to who's really running this country and how they're running it.
All right, so to get free, no judgment. So remember that your amygdala is your attached ego mind. And because if you're like me, I mean, I lived under the rule of this part of my brain for 40 some years. So I'm having to learn a completely new and different way of being. And it is not easy. And if people say light and love to you, hugs and kisses, and that's all it is, they're not telling you the truth. Do we want what? Light and love? Yeah, we do. But it's not just that simple. So your brain is constantly coding things. This is what the subconscious mind does. And the subconscious is what we really have to heal by bringing it into our conscious awareness. And this is where Chuck has been a priceless gift to my growth, is that he calls me on things that I have, ceased to be conscious about. So it's constantly coding good, bad, what I want, what I don't want. Just like even when we watch TV, there again, we're unconscious. Advertisements, that's what I want, that's what I don't want, right? Pleasure, desire. You ever watch those pharmaceutical commercials? Everybody's so happy in those commercials, and they have a beautiful family, and they look so young for their age, and, that's what I want. I want that. And we are being subconsciously programmed. So then when we go to the doctor, we ask for those pills because we think that's going to, our brain has, we've just taken that into our subconscious mind. It's ceased to think. So the attached ego mind, this is pleasure, this is health, this is desirable, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. I don't want this. This is going to cause me to suffer. I want less of this, more of that. Less of this, more of that. Less of this, more. And there's a hamster wheel. Less of this, more of that. Less of this, more of that. More of that, more of that. Less of this, more of that. And it's BS, right? And so the amygdala is this animalistic, instinctive nature that is really overdeveloped. And so it's just kind of taken over with this judgment. Do you have something, sweetie?
Yeah, the commercials about pharmaceuticals. They've done the studies. The advertising agencies have done the studies and have found when they hit the airways, naming symptoms, that it takes approximately 2 years before people start to get the disease. Why do pharmaceutical companies advertise drugs when we can't get a prescription for them? We have to go to the doctor. And these ads are very, very expensive. So why are they spending all this money? Because they're programming us to get the disease. We hear it over and over again. Half of the commercials are drugs now. The other thing they do is they will list the symptoms. And if you listen closely, half the time the last one is death. Now, why do they list the symptoms? Why? Because when you've heard it enough and you go into the doctor and the doctor starts to tell you the side effects, you zone out. Because the mind says, oh, we heard that, we know that, and you don't pay any attention. So this is all the studies and the money spent to discover how to get us to buy things is just unbelievable. And so this is why, if you do watch TV, be sure and mute any commercials that come on.
Yeah, that's good. So when we feel fearful or disturbed on the inside, our tendency is to judge, and likely by the time we're feeling disturbed or upset on the inside, it's because of a judgment that we either subconsciously or consciously have already bought into, right? Like poor Chuck. God bless him. You guys pray for him. I don't know how he deals with me. But in the car this weekend, I don't know. In the car this weekend, he did or said something, and I felt controlled. I felt controlled. All right, notice I'm not saying he was controlling me. I'm saying I felt controlled. There's a difference. Got that? So there it was, instantaneously. That fight or flight, amygdalas kicked in, and I coded what he'd said as me being controlled. Yeah. Well, I coded it that way because I have a long history of being controlled by men, my dad and this and that and blah, 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 all my story. And it likely goes into past lives as well, right? So there in that split second, I'm in fight or flight, my amygdala's firing off, I'm firing off at the mouth that's my fight instinct, right? To fire off at the mouth. So, but there's a judgment there. The judgment is he's controlling me. So I'll share a little bit here of a practical way you can address this. This is from an enlightened being named Byron Katie. He's controlling me. So what you do is you ask yourself, is that true? Is he controlling me? Maybe it is true. Okay, can I be absolutely certain that he's controlling me? Am I absolutely certain? Not really. Then you turn the phrase around, you turn it around two different ways. He's controlling me. Turn it around to he's not controlling me. Oh, he's not controlling me? Which is more true? He's controlling me or he's not controlling me? Actually, it's more true that he's not controlling me, because the truth is I'm just doing whatever I want to do. He said something, but that doesn't mean he's controlling me, right? Then you can turn it around the second way. He's controlling me or I'm controlling me. Oh, I am controlling me. Okay, so you kind of turn those around a little bit. So if you can't, I did not have the presence of mind to use that strategy. I hope that you will. And I might. Sometimes I do. So here's the secret. If we start blaming, we'll never stop. And so once we've bought into a judgment, it can happen in a split second. And it can be a really long held judgment, with a lot of baggage behind it, with a lot of deep, deep roots. It might be a huge oak tree, not just a little sapling. But once we start judging and blaming, we will never stop. So now, this insight may help somebody. Now, when I judge Chuck, typically he won't receive it because he's just that awake and aware enough that he won't take it on. He's going to leave that that ball with me. So when that happens, the other person does not receive your judgment of them. One of two things will happen. You'll either wake up and become conscious. Oh, that's my stuff. And you'll drop it or work through it, or the your ego will turn it back on yourself and you will judge yourself. You see? So I had a choice then to admit the truth. Oh, actually, I'm the controlling one. That's true. If I took time to really think about it, this is where self-inquiry is your tool for freedom. I could go back and list thousands of times that I've been controlling with people. So what you see in another is really what's in you, right? Was he being controlling in that moment? Maybe. And also, I'm guilty of the same. Jesus said that. Jesus said, you that judge do the same. Right? So whatever we're judging other people for are the very things that we're guilty of. They're just mirroring it back to us, right? So, yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. I'm listening here. Yeah. So when you become aware that you're judging, you want to turn in. If you have the grace, turn in. Look at yourself. Is this true? Maybe this is true about me. 9 times out of 10, you'll find that you've been guilty of the very same thing. You know, I told the story recently. Somebody was asking me about narcissism. You know, there's a lot of, that's like the new thing, right? Everybody's a narcissist. Well, pretty much, yeah, everybody's a narcissist. But I mean, really, like if you watch TV and Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff, there is a shift. You can see a change to where the vast majority of the main characters now are true narcissists. But we all fall on the spectrum somewhere of narcissists. This is what the ego is. The ego only cares about self-preservation and pleasure, right? So we're all somewhere on that. Go ahead, sweetie.
Okay, so everything is a mirror. So what you see in somebody else is mirroring to you, and you can't change that mirror. You change you, and the mirror will change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the purpose of not only people, but of everything that's happening, is to mirror back to us so that we can see where we are and so we can grow.
Exactly. And I love the little illustration. If you look in the mirror and there's a smudge, you realize there's a smudge on your face, you don't reach up to the mirror and wipe the smudge off their face. That wouldn't make any sense, right? You can't do it. It doesn't work like that. You have to reach up and that's why Jesus said, hey, why are you, raising a fuss about the splinter? Oh, hi there, you've got a splinter. You've got to have a little speck of something in your eye when you've got a huge beam in your own eye, right? He said, take care of your own stuff first. And so this is the truth of, the world is full of all kinds of insanity going on. And so where we can get sucked in as spiritual people that really want better, we want a more conscious world, we want a more loving world, we want a more joyful world, is getting sucked into fighting all the stuff. When the truth is, what we need to do to change the world is to turn inwards and look in. One of the things I'm doing in this season of my life, I'm going back and looking at the Bible with new eyes. When I was a kid, and through my adult years, I read the Bible cover to cover many times. But I also had a lot of heavy conditioning about what it meant and what people told me it meant. So I'm in a process of kind of sifting and sorting through that. So last week when I was looking at this word repent in the original Greek, that word means to return or to turn in. So there's a lot of people that believe, based on history, that Jesus spent those kind of missing years between 14 and 30 in a traditional Eastern training, spiritual training. And so for him, when he said repent, 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 he said it so many times. What he was saying is, drop your judgments and look inside, turn in, see what's going on in your own heart, deal with that. So wherever there is judgment, you can bet your bippy there's going to be guilt and punishment with it. Guilt and punishment go along with it. So you're either going to feel guilty, or you're going to hold others guilty. You're going to punish yourself, or you're going to want to punish others. There are some of you precious ones that have chronic diseases right now, and the reason they're not going away is because you feel guilty for something and you won't forgive yourself for it. And so you're punishing yourself subconsciously with disease. And there are some of you that are in abusive, terrible, terrible relationships, and you won't allow yourself to leave because you feel guilty or you feel responsible. So what we want to remember about judgment is it's a state of unconsciousness. It's a state of unconsciousness that's ruled by our ego mind. So if you want to be the real you, if you want to be, dear, the real you, which is perfect and blameless and holy and full of love and full of glory and miracles and wonder and in full of infinite intelligence, you must divorce this ego mind of yours. Divorce it. Divorce all of your conditioning, all the lies. Become aware of what you're thinking. Become aware of these judgments and drop them like you would a hot frying pan that's burning your hand. Drop them. They're not serving you. They're not allowing you to be who you are. They are causing you to suffer. Let them go. So judging others is the cover story for fear and anger, and judging ourselves is the ego's cover story for sadness and lack. Now, every major religion has a core teacher of non-judgment. Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, the Hebrew faith. And I want to let Judah channel about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Do you guys know that story?
In Genesis with Adam and Eve, all that.
Yeah. Let's let Judah talk about that. Before I channel on that, I'll read you this quote from Lao Tzu. It says, "When people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad." And Romans 12:1, this is my paraphrase after I looked up the Greek. It says, "There's no excuse for passing judgment on another. For when you pass judgment on another, you are condemning yourself because it's you who practices the exact same things." All right, I want to let Judah talk about the tree of knowledge. Yes, so let us tell you, there is a very old, ancient creation story. There are many creation stories. And we would say the creation stories that are still circulating have a lot of value, each one of them. That of the Cherokee and the Peruvian tradition and the Christian tradition and Hebraic tradition as well. And so here is the story. The first man, the first woman, there in the garden. They were in paradise. They lived in perfection, in ease, as you are discussing tonight, in ease. There were no problems there. There was no work, no toil, no sweat. There were only luscious health and life-giving foods to eat. There was love and peace and goodness. And there was, above all things, there was a continual experience of relating with the divine, with spirit. For the very Spirit of God dwelt in this paradise with Adam and Eve in relationship. And there were two trees there in the garden of special importance. There was one called the tree of life, and there was one called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, we're not telling you whether or not you should believe all the details of this story. We will leave that to you. We are simply saying that the story, as a teaching tool, has merit. Now, this tree of life, it is said that when one ate from this tree, one would instantly enter a godlike state of being an eternal being in which that one would never, ever, ever die. So to eat of this tree meant the end of death and to live one's entire existence in a God state. Now the second tree, this tree of knowledge of good and evil, the fruit thereof, when one would eat of this fruit, it is said that one would instantly begin to become conscious of the existence of good and the existence of evil. So to eat the fruit of this would be to enter duality, this state of judgment that the vessel is speaking to you about. Good, bad, right, wrong, beautiful, ugly, and so on. Now, Adam and Eve were given very strict instructions. You can eat of any tree in this garden except this one of the knowledge of good and evil. Do not eat this one, because when you eat of it, you shall surely die. That is what is said in the scripture. You shall surely die. And of course, they couldn't resist themselves, and you know the rest of the story. And therefore, they were kicked out of the garden and lost the privilege of being eternal and eating the fruit of the tree of life, because now they were in a state of duality. And who would want to live forever in a state of duality? Would you? We think not. And so, this is the difficulty then. You shall surely die. You see, there is a death of your innocence, your purity, of your higher self that comes to you every time that you judge. Every time that you judge. And to really experience eternal life and your eternal parts is to be free of this fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And every day, hundreds, perhaps even thousands of times a day, you are being given the opportunity to eat of this tree. You understand this? Yes. Good. Okay. How are we doing? Anything so far? Any thoughts or questions? Okay. So the ego is the big inner judge, and this judge needs a victim. Right? A villain and a victim. So the victim is the receiver of the judgments. And if you feel like a victim of yourself or others, know that the big judge is active. And so we want to just shrink him. Shrink him. We want him to be like the Austin Powers mini-me. So some mantras that can help on this first J that we're talking about for your freedom. People do what they do. No judgment, right? People do what they do. Life does what it does. And even with me, you know, I tend to have more, I do judge others sometimes, for sure. I tend to have more trouble judging myself. So if I just really blow it on something and get caught up in my ego or acting out in some way, I just got to forgive myself. Love myself. Be gentle. So what? I got mad. So what? I said something. I hurt somebody. Yeah, I hurt somebody. I hate that. You know what? People do it. It happens sometimes. I ask for forgiveness. I forgive myself. I go on. So don't judge anything. That's another good mantra. Don't judge anything. Yeah?
The ego does have a place. It has a place in a youngster, because when a 5-year-old has some kind of abuse, it can't handle that. So it's the ego's job to create a story, a false story about what happened, so that the person, that child, doesn't have to experience that. So an ego is a story we make about ourselves to make us what we think is better. Well, yes, I steal, but I'm stealing from wealthy people. They have too much money, or whatever. And so, but when we get older, we don't need the ego anymore. But it's not ready to relinquish the power to us. But that's what happens. It does have a place, but it's time. There's a time when it's time for it to be dissolved.
That's really good. That's a good point. So yeah, go ahead, sweetie.
Every day when we choose what food we make, are we not judging? This food is healthy and this food is not. We have a food supply that isn't healthy. And
Yeah.
every day when we choose our clothing or we take a shower, is that not a judgment?
It's true. Well, so let's go back to the one about food. So the amygdala, it has a physiological purpose for our life and well-being and protection. I mean, you can imagine, especially, you know, now we're in a more modern society, it can get a little more nuanced, like food choices. But you can imagine, think 100, 500 years ago, to be able to look at two different fruits and discern, is this poisonous or is this something good for me? That's a function of the amygdala to code things in that way. And so we need that part of us. And another example would be, when we step up to the street, we, as adults, we kind of have an instinct about when it's safe to cross the street, right? There might be tons of cars coming, but we still feel pretty comfortable that our amygdala is functioning and that we can navigate across safely. That's what the amygdala is for. The problem is when we have heavy trauma or conditioning from painful experiences in our past and sometimes past lives that cause us to just have an overactive amygdala. So yes, judgment in that sense, and if you use the word discernment, that could help you be a little, easier around the subject. But yeah, it has its place for sure.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting to think about. But one of the things you could also say is this particular food is more what I need rather than kind of judging them. But think about this. There are people that during a fundamental Christian ceremony drink strychnine poison, and they're fine. They're fine because they believe God is protecting them. And is God protecting them? No, it's their belief. So possibly, if we believe that this is the perfect thing for me to eat, it may be. So it's important to think that. And that's why I believe one reason why we say grace is because it's to put that energy into that food. And what I tell my patients, okay, if you're going to eat that piece of cake, okay, you're going to eat it, okay, fine. Give yourself permission, but don't say, this is bad for me, I shouldn't eat it. No. Enjoy that piece. Enjoy it to the fullest.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a good thing around food is to consider, there again, looking in. Am I making this choice out of fear? Because if we're making it out of a fear, how is it going to sustain or nourish our body? Right? I once met a beautiful, beautiful, intuitive, psychic woman who was just wasting away, literally, because she had judged everything as being bad for her, almost everything. She was down to just a little handful of things she could eat, and she was literally going to kill herself if she didn't let go of those judgments, right?
And there's also the story about when they took two identical plants and put them in the exact type of environment. And with this one, they went into the room and said, oh, you're so beautiful. Look at you. You're just beautiful. And they went into the other one and say, oh, you're ugly. You're not worth living. This one dies and this one flourishes. So if our words can do that to a plant, what can it do to us? And what can it do to the food that we're getting ready to eat? And this is why eating at places like at McDonald's is poisonous, because you've got somebody back there who doesn't really want to be there, who's probably angry and everything, and that's going right into that food. And if our hospitals were to get an Italian or Jewish mom on each floor to cook for the people there, they'd be out in no time.
Yeah, I love it.
Become restaurants instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? All right, so we're at a juncture here that we can do a little work and for about 5 or 10 minutes and stop for the night, or we can do a little bit of the next part. What do you guys want to do? Are you feeling full?
You want to save some time for maybe questions and answers?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So the last thing I want to mention about judging is this. So, obviously we have these small judgments we make, right? Like what I'm going to wear and all that. And what I'm going to eat, all the way to the extreme, which is slander, gossip, accusation, and so on. I thought this was really interesting. I discovered this week. I was going back through scripture, as I said, and looking at this word devil, because I'm at a point where I'm like, what is this? Is there a real devil or not? I don't think so. So I thought I would peek into this. So the word devil in the scripture actually means, one of its meaning is malicious gossip, false accuser, or slanderer. So it doesn't mean a person with a capital D. It's not a proper noun, okay? It's a word that has these meanings. So if you think about that a little deeply, what that means is, if who is the devil? Well, the devil is a slanderer, a gossiper. That's who the devil is, right? An accuser. So if we have to be careful, because if we let ourselves slide over into that accusation and slander and gossip, then we're the devil, right? I don't mean that in a literal sense, but I mean we're taking on that quality, right? And if you hear that in your own psyche about yourself, you hear like an accusatory voice, you can rest assured that that is not God, and that is not your higher self. That is definitely not of you. That is a negative energy. Go ahead, Steve.
I think it's important. I think what you're saying is what I believe is that when Jesus, when he left from the age of 12 or 14 to like 32, he went to India. And that's where he learned how to become spiritual, and that's where he became enlightened. But in India, they use parables and stories. So when he goes back to Israel, wherever, and he's telling these stories, they're taking him literally. Like when he says, all things will be new again. Maybe he's talking about reincarnation. And I am the Son of God, and you are in me too. But they didn't understand what he was saying. And I think that was part of what happened. But I think it's pretty much a fact that he did go to India Egypt too, and that's where, because there's no way, if they think this is the Son of God, they're not going to write about, if they're there, that what he's doing is like they're going to have that logged unless he's gone, and he's gone off to an ashram or some place where he's being taught, and so that's what I think. And when I was in India, when I was up in Nepal and up in the mountains, there's this little village where you can go to, and they will tell you that Jesus was there, that he actually was there. There's actually the story, I don't know if this is true or not, but that Jesus did not die on the cross, that when it got dark, the soldiers left and his people came and took him down, and then he said, well, I'm not going to stay here, they tried to kill me. So he went back, he said goodbye to his disciples, and he went back to India. And there's a place there where they will take you, and they say he's buried here. I don't know if it's true or not. Now we all know there's parallel universes, so there is a universe where that's true, and then there's universes where it's not. But anyway, it's a neat little story.
All right, let's do some work around judgments. When I say work, I use that, it's not exactly the right word, but we're going to release judgments. Does that sound good? All right. And then we're going to perhaps have a short little bit of singing, but I do want to make time to just go around and bless anybody hands-on that wants a darshan, an energy transmission, an energy exchange, a blessing, however you want to look at it. All right, so open hearts, open minds. Let's just work on some releasing here. Now, I want to just teach a little bit before we start. If you're following Judah's work, we do a lot of this sort of releasing. So a quick teaching so that you can make the most of these when you encounter them in the videos and in the work. When you do this sort of work, you want to listen to your heart, not your head, and listen for a yes or a no. A yes or a no. Okay, so you want to let your thoughts, your mind kind of melt down into your heart. Let yourself go into kind of a relaxed, alpha, meditative state. Dropping your mind and answering yes or no from the heart. And the goal is to answer honestly. So I ask you a question and you feel a firm no in your heart, that's fine. There's no right or wrong answer. And I will sometimes repeat the question, and what will happen over time is you will feel your no's begin to get softer and softer and softer, and then you'll just feel them start melting and they'll become a yes. And you'll actually feel yourself let it go. You'll just feel yourself drop it. And that's the magic spot. That is the spot in which, when you feel that soft yes, that your ego has been sublimated. Your ego has been laid to rest on that topic. Okay? So that's why we're doing this exercise, if that helps you in the future as you use these. All right. And so could you welcome the part of yourself that is sometimes judgy? Could you welcome that part of yourself that judges others? Could you welcome that part? And could you accept that part? Could you welcome the knowing or the understanding that when you're judging, it's because you're afraid? You're afraid of something. So could you welcome the awareness that you're judging? Could you welcome the awareness that you're judging, because it's a gift then to see that you're afraid? Could you welcome that? And then could you welcome the fear? Could you welcome the fear and just feel the energy of it in your body so that you can let it go? Could you welcome that fear coming up from underneath the judgment, peeking its head up from underneath the judgment? Could you welcome that, because now that it's appearing, you can see it, you're aware of it, and you can let it go. So could you just let the fear even wiggle its way through your physical energy and then release it? Could you let it go? And just know that it's only an energy. You can release it. So ask yourself with your inner voice, say, fear, do you want to go? And you might hear a yes. And maybe you can just exhale it out of your body. Fear, do you want to go? Yes. Fear, do you want to go? Yes. And I just take authority right now in the holy name of Judah and of Source. I take authority of every negative attachment of fear, every negatively attached energy of fear. I command you to leave. So could you let go of your attachments to fear? So could you allow this to come into your consciousness, that fear has pretended to be your friend? Fear's pretended to be your friend and told you a lie that it would protect you from suffering if you would just keep it as your friend. Do you see that now? Can you see that that's a lie? Can you see that fear lied to you and said it would protect you, but it hasn't? It's caused you to suffer more. So ask again in your heart, fear, do you want to go? Fear, do you want to go?
Yes.
Fear, do you want to go? Good. And more, fear, do you want to go? Judah, I ask you to sweep through this room, and I ask you to scoop up all the fear and take it out and throw it in the garbage. I ask that you would bring freedom here, that you would release each and every one here and within the sound of my voice from as much fear as possible in this moment of space and time, in this moment of time and space, right here, right now. Judah, I ask that you remove not just this fear, but all the fear behind it, everything attached to it. I ask that you go back to the original hurt, wound, where trust was breached, where there was betrayal, where there was harm, where there was trauma, where there was abuse, where there was danger. I ask you to go back to the very original moment that the fear entered. I ask that you would tag that and uproot it and treat it thoroughly, top to bottom, in and out, every bit of it. Treat it in every realm of time and space, past, present, parallel, and future realities, and take it out and trash it tonight. You should feel it coming right out of your body. So you may feel that you need to cough or burp or sneeze or cry. You can feel it come right out of your body. Just release it. It can't hurt you anymore. Good. Doing great. Fear, do you want to go? Yes. Fear, do you want to go? Yes. You see, it wants to leave. This is what you need to know about negative energy in your body. It really wants to leave. That's why sometimes it coagulates into cancers, into tumors, into warts, into knots and nodules, into knee pain, into back pain. This is fear energy stored in your body, and I command it to go right now. Go. Yeah, good. Good, very good. Go ahead.
Sometimes I tell the fear that there is a place for it in this universe. There is a place, but it's not inside me. Please go find that place where you do belong.
Mm-hmm. Right. Good. Now, so could you let go of every judgment, every opinion, every belief system that has been held in place by fear? So what I want you to see that as you're releasing this fear, the fear is like a dark man holding on to a bunch of balloons, a bunch of hot air, a bunch of helium balloons. And Judah's giving me this picture now. So as you release fear, the balloons are all the judgments, opinions, points of view, soapboxes, accusations, slander, gossip. It's all of that. All of that. So as you release the fear, this dark man is leaving with all of his balloons, all the judgments. All the judgments are going. Good, good. You guys are doing great. You're doing great. Good, 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 good. Very good. Good. All right, I'm going to start moving around the room. And I'm going to sign off with our live folks so I can move around the room and bless these guys. And if you don't want to be touched, that's totally fine with me. You can just kind of cross your arms over your chest when I come by. Okay? Otherwise, I'm going for broke. I'm going to give you as much freedom as I can. And it's not me. I love you guys. See you soon.